Power pushers, for me, are motorized model railroad cars used to push, or for that matter pull, other models which, for whatever reason, should but cannot provide locomotion. Usually they are just too small to be fitted with electric motors. An early example of this is the HO scale Chemtron 420 Pioneer, which originally in the late 1950s came out as a solid brass static kit, but later was available with a small motor that could fit in the tender. Now this is not what I would call tender drive. Tender drive, at least for me, is when the motor in the tender has a shaft to the gearing and drivetrain in the locomotive. The tender for this Chemtron model is a true power pusher. I added a few extra details to the model, made the draw pin serve as a conductive connector rather than having a wire dangling between the loco and tender, and most notably, I filled the hollow loco with low melting point pot metal for better traction and electric pickup.
Tell me why, tell me who, tell me you don't know what to do. Get it all over you. Who will know how to fight? Only you. Tell me why, tell me who, tell me you don't know what to do. Get it all over you. Who will know how to fight? Only you. You with me.
Now, power pushers are not just for small steam locomotives. Consider maintenance of way equipment like Stuart Model's HO scale American hoist and derrick 25-ton crane. The prototype was powered and able to perform light switching duties. Indeed, when the Stuart kit was released in the late 50s, an article was printed in the December 1957 issue of Model Railroader magazine showing how to power one of the trucks with rubber band drive. My problem was that before finding this article, I had already built the kit and thus couldn't make the internal modifications as proposed. Now, another brass kit, also issued in the late 50s, was the Chemtron work train, which optionally could be fitted with their Teaspoon of Power, part KL766. I'm guessing the KL was for Chemtron Lindsay, since Lindsay was the manufacturer of the motor, which even today is a marvelous bit of engineering. This motor was similar to that used to power push the 420. I was fortunate to find this Chemtron kit and motor at a swap meet. However, when the work train power pusher was assembled as designed, it did not have enough heft and oomph to push the Stuart crane. The wheels would simply spin behind the crane. As you can see, the crane model is made up of heavy brass and die-cast Zamak parts. So I made a small scratch-built flat car for the Chemtron load. Plus, let's call it a compressed air tank, both filled with low melting point pot metal, which now gave enough traction as a power pusher. A few years ago, I purchased an HO scale standard gauge Burro Crane model imported by Overland Models Inc. The model came with a long coupling pole and small gondola. There are a number of YouTube videos of Burro Cranes scooting around railroad yards performing all sorts of MOW duties. This time, I sort of accidentally designed a power pusher after I picked up a broken Bachmann John Bull engine. Thank you, Jake. Which came with its own motorized tender in need of some serious TLC. After repair, I fashioned a very whimsical tool shed outhouse as the power pusher. This is one of the very few models in my collection that is plastic instead of brass or die-cast metal. And yes, the water tank on the roof is filled with low melting point pot metal. Here's the result. Note the small flat car is left over from the Chemtron work train, and I'm sure the crane bucket would have to be secured or dropped into the gondola. But again, this particular model was meant to be a quirky porta-potty power pusher. How's that for an alliteration? Probably the favorite maintenance of way model in my collection is the Ditcher imported from Korea, again by Overland Models. This model comes with both a steam shovel and pile driver attachment. Seen here with the shovel, I think it would be a shame for a model with those side rods to sit inanimate in a siding. What I needed was to build a small power pusher which could run at slow speed. I got a good deal on an HON3 narrow gauge Westside Lumber 2-truck caboose, which was just the right size to house a standard gauge trolley power truck. Notice the conductive drawbar. Now the Ditcher has a small cabin car in tow, and we can see the monkey motion of those side rods. Final and most ambitious power pusher was for my HON3 440 cab forward. This kit is from Wiseman Model Services in Kentucky and is not for the faint-hearted. There are no directions, and the parts in the exploded diagram do not correspond to those in the kit. The model comes with no motor, but includes a geared driver, idler, and shaft with universals as though made for tender drive. I could see no way to do that with the really nice double tank tender. Wiseman accurately advertises this kit as, quote, a bit of a project, but doable. Amen. The die-cast model is extremely heavy, 6 ounces, so I was lucky to find a large narrow gauge caboose at a swap meet. It was a basket case and larger than the one I used for the Ditcher. I then modified the drive from a Grant Line box cab kit to fit inside the caboose by grinding off the diesel truck detail and replacing that with side frames from a Mantua caboose, so as to give this power pusher a bobber caboose look. The caboose shell was filled with 5 ounces of weights, as much as space would allow. So here is the illusion. I custom built a small flat car to ride between the caboose and tender because the bobber sort of visually dominated the small tender. The original caboose trucks were used for this flat car. The load on the flat car is another fine Wiseman model of a small kerosene loco. Piece of cake to build after the cab forward. So that's it. Consider power pushers for your otherwise static models.